He had shouted this at their mother, who was resisting attempts to rescue Madeline, and both girls had heard it. Shouted as if Madeline's name were Crazy, Cunning, or Psychotic Daughter instead. They had just turned 5 years old. Madeline was simply too young, in Paige's opinion, to be put through any sort of testing, therapy, or medicine. The marriage between Andy and the girls, which had once been a true love affair, although neither girl knew it, ended because Andy had the exact opposite opinion. She drew a cursive outline around the letters on her sister's tombstone as lightning again tore through the night. She rejoiced in her demise, despite the fact that others presumably expected her to. She would never say that. Even during silent dinners, her mother side-eyed her with a frightened, bereaved look. She was very certain that her mother was aware that the accident wasn't a coincidence. Paige, though, would never speak up. Their mother had experienced all the worst, losing her spouse, an entire lifetime of a manic, cunning, and crazy girl, losing a child, which was tragic regardless of the circumstances. Paige was exhausted and withering. Her movements resembled those of a ghost, as if she had perished with her daughter. There had been no murder or other violent crime. It was truly an accident because there was no premeditation, but it seemed as though the universe had presented a chance, like a gigantic hand had murmured here as it descended from the heavens, "Bring her out. Put an end to your issues." It was a gorgeous day in October. The consequences of Erica's boyfriend's betrayal were still raw, so they had driven home from school in dead quiet. When she was packing her belongings and the car was already parked, she realized she needed to transfer it to the street. Their mother would require entry to the garage, but she wasn't home yet. As soon as she threw it into reverse, she heard a hard tap and a dull thud. She abruptly pressed on the brakes, after which she released them after that. She let the car to roll backwards, enjoying the pleasurable swaying as it slammed into her sister and realized her many dreams. Both what had occurred and the sense of calm she had as a result were shocking. Of course, the aftermath, especially the early aftermath, wasn't pleasant. Although she had always thought of herself as having a strong stomach, seeing her twin's identical face and smithereens on the driveway was enough to make her throw up before she even called 911. When Paige arrived a little while later, ambulances had already gathered around the house. She let out a primal scream, "All right." She admits that she felt horrible, regardless of how much Paige may have disliked Madeline. She couldn't help but feel compassion for her own mother. The funeral had followed that. It was easy to determine the reason for the appallingly low turnout. Was their response to be sad for your loss? Her father's awkward and uneasy demeanor, which she noticed when he patted her shoulder as if she were a horse in a stable that he was slightly frightened of. Little did he say to her. All he did was stare at the coffin. She claimed to have seen tears dripping. Their father had made it clear that Erica was his favorite before he left all those years ago. Andy had little respect for Paige's attempts to maintain the myth that she loved her girls equally at the time. He played with Erica, went on Sunday errands with her, and made embarrassed dad jokes about taking quarters out of her ears. However, it was strange to watch him sobbing as he stood over the coffin, not even open it. She had kind of figured he would hang around. the three of them might be able to create a nice, traditional family now that her sister is no longer a factor, even though she was getting close to adulthood. She continued to daydream about the life she may have had if it weren't for all the hatred in the world. It was all she had, a mother and father who adored each other, and her no sis. She could see Christmas dinners with the three of them in her entire future. On the day of her wedding, her parents walked her down the aisle together, a joyful life. Nevertheless, it was not to be. Andy split more quickly than the previous time. He had not even attended the cemetery's interment. She decided it was time to head home as the rain started to fall. She really didn't want to, since her biggest secret was that she had never felt more connected to her sister than she did in the years since she had run her over. Every time she went to the grave, she experienced an aliveness and a connection. When they connected, she felt almost a twinge of remorse because perhaps their differences could have been resolved in some other way. Perhaps her sister had simply been acting out the part that she had been given. That could also suggest that they weren't all that dissimilar after all. Erica ran her fingers along Madeline's name as the rain started to pour more heavily. Every time she bid someone farewell, she followed a protocol. She traced the name, spoke it into the night, knelt down, and gave the cold, wet stone one last kiss before rising. It was humorous. Everyone would have concluded that Madeline intentionally ran over Erica with her automobile. If it had been the other way around, though Erica, nobody would ever realize that she had a few paws to reflect, and that this gave her the opportunity to alter the course of what was about to unfold. And even if they had a sneaking suspicion that such a situation existed, they would never have guessed that Erica would have purposely and deliberately let off the brake. Not Erica, who diligently rubbed her toothpaste down the sink and volunteered at the homeless shelter. Erica never spoke ill of anyone, not even her crazy, deceitful, and psychotic sister. Nobody could possibly know. And suddenly there was a feeling of calm. At least she didn't have to constantly keep an eye on Madeline and worry what she was up to. Erica was able to think things through in the room. Mind-boggling amounts of effort had been expended on controlling, avoiding, and keeping an eye out for Madeline's animosity. Without her there, a lot of room existed. She enjoyed how visiting the graveyard made her feel, so perhaps that was the reason. It was well known. Erica knelt down and gave the gravestone one final kiss. She experienced an electric shock running through her and that wickedness that appeared to emanate from Madeline. She shared Madeline's rage, thus she had always understood it. Simply put, she had never taken action, at the very least till the accident day. They weren't that dissimilar, though, were they? Another lightning strike caused the sky to become white and purple as Erica turned to go. She was certain a hand reached out of the ground at that very second, grabbed her ankle, and pulled her away. She realized she had just fallen over her own defeat as the blackness engulfed her once more. Nothing was present. There was no hand protruding from the ground or broken ground. Erica was still uneasy. Her heart was thumping in a way it hadn't in a long year as she rushed out of the graveyard. She stared over her shoulder the whole time, hoping to see Madeline. She was certain she could hear herself laughing behind her, but when she got to her car, she discovered it was just the thunder as she slipped lately walking down the front steps of the house. She recalled how she had recently felt a hand shove her from behind, but nobody was there, so she assumed she needed her morning coffee more than she knew. But now Erica questioned, wouldn't it be just like the crazy, deceitful, and maniacal Madeline to be able to cause mischief from the afterlife? She gave her head a short shake as if to dismiss that thought. This was merely PTSD brought on by years of torture and pain from what she had done. Madeline wasn't there. She remembered that day in all its vividness. She threw the car into reverse to turn around and scurry out of the cemetery, and she knew she'd made the correct decision. Being dead and all, Madeline could only do so much more. Erica was relieved to be dead. She felt happy that she had been the one to bring it about. There were other people who were crazy, maniacal, and manipulative besides Madeline. No, they weren't really that different.